Hello, friends. Welcome. We are live. Abbie is here.
Hello.
I see some of you guys popping up in the chat over there. Welcome. We're so stoked to have you here today. We're so stoked to be hanging out with you. We have some cups of tea. We hope you have a cup of tea or coffee. I opted for some tea because I've already had a couple cups of coffee. I feel like I'm my mind and heart are racing, so I'm switching over to tea now. So we're really stoked to have this chance to just hang out with you guys, talk organically, and just have a fun discussion with you all about some mindfulness tips that have helped us in our everyday practice. But before we get into it, tell us where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you, hear where you're watching from. I think it's always really cool to see all the different places that we're from and how we're kind of converging in this moment all in the same place together. It's just really, really cool. Oh, Hannah liked your Little Women shirt.
Thank you. I
So
love
cool.
it too.
Yeah, Little Women
It's
is
so
the
cute.
best. It's cool. Me and Abbie are both huge fans.
Yes,
Definitely. Yeah.
for sure.
North of Germany. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Australia, Maryland. Oh, so cool. South Carolina, Chicago, Georgia. It's so cool. So cool to have you all here. Welcome, everyone. So, a lot of you who have been here on my channel know that every Saturday we try to get together and chat about mindfulness and creativity. I mean, that's really what this channel is all about, is how can we use mindfulness practices to fuel our creativity forward. So Abbie and I have been talking a lot lately about just different practices that we each respectively have, a lot of practices that we share that help us so much. And so as we were talking more about it, we're like, hey, let's, sit down and have an organic discussion with all of you. Also, Amy, thank you for the super chat. Shout out to you.
Yes, thank you.
So much gratitude and love. We appreciate you. UK, Arizona. That's so cool. So cool. So some of the practices that we like to use. Well, before we get started on that, actually, we wanted to give you guys a heads up. If you enjoy when me and Abbie get together and chat with you guys live and answer questions, which feel free to ask questions because we're going to do some Q&A here too. We are actually launching a brand new thing over on our Patreon, which is a live stream check-in each month. So every single month, we're going to be going live with our patrons, and no matter what level you're supporting at, you can be supporting at any level. And we're going to go live with you guys every month and check in and bring probably a topic about creativity or creative writing to the table. And we can talk about that. We can do Q&A. We can do all kinds of different things. But we felt like we have such a cool community here with you guys that we want to be able to get together more and be able to share more. So if you want to join our Patreon, now is the time to do it if you've ever been considering it, because our community has grown into such a beautiful atmosphere that we want to be able to do something to share more with you guys in this format that we're using right now of live streams each month, checking in, getting to hear about you guys' progress with your books, with your creative life, what's been weighing on your hearts and moving you. So be sure to check that out. Join the Patreon with the link in the description of this video. We're really excited about some of the updates that we have coming. We have a lot of new stuff coming this year. So
Yeah,
it's going to be
fun.
Yes, it is for the Kate and Abbie podcast patrons. Yes, and the link for that exact Patreon page is going to be in the description, so there won't be any confusion about the which page, because I know me and Abbie also have our respective ones, so it's a little confusing. But it's the page for our podcast. So if you enjoy the podcast, you enjoy live chats with us, you're going to probably get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some mindfulness tips that have helped us in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
So for me, I find that this concept of needing to constantly be filling the cup is so important, because when we are telling stories and as creatives, we're constantly pouring out of our spirits, out of our souls, out of our creative wellspring. And we need to make sure we're nourishing and filling that cup. You know what I mean? Like we've talked about concepts like that.
It's very important. It's something that I think a lot of times when we get super caught up in our schedules and projects, even things that you're really excited and passionate about, you can get kind of carried away with that sometimes. And I know for myself anyway, I can get like super into something and then not even realize that I'm getting burnt out in the process.
Because it's almost like sometimes it's just feelings of being tired, feelings of being not in a writing mood, not in the mood to create. And you don't even necessarily know why right away. Because it can kind of sneak up on you. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because you're just going and going and going, and there's almost not enough time to slow down and stop and ask yourself, am I doing enough to keep myself healthy and inspired and nourished? Am I doing all of those things? Because that's what helps us to fill the cup, to be able to continue to give to the world. And that's something that Abbie and I constantly talk about. And we both experience burnout still. It's not like we're immune to it in any way. It's that as you tap into like some practices that work for you, you know how to respond to burnout when it comes.
And to prevent it too. Because
preventative care.
You can sort of kind of feel it coming on and then do some things to prevent yourself from going like full into burnout, and just, taking those steps, even if you feel like you're really creatively tired and exhausted and just creatively dull. Even at that point, before you're burnt out, you can take a step back and take some time to to adopt those practices you're talking about with nourishing your creativity and filling your cup, before it's completely empty.
And I think so, like, a lot of us start to realize that. And I think now more than ever, there's this movement for realizing, how can we back away from using technology so often? How can we back away from hustle culture? I feel like there's more material out there now than ever before. But then it's like, okay, I realize I need a break. I realize I need to take time to be nourishing myself, mind, body, and spirit. But like, what are the practical steps to actually do that? And I think that's where there can be this sort of gray area of wandering around trying to figure out how do I do that? So for us, I know there's some very specific practices that we like to turn to. For me, one of those practices is meditation. A lot of you guys are gonna be like, oh, I guess Kate was gonna say that, because if you've been around here for a while, you've heard me talk about it, you've heard Abbie talk about it. And we actually both have meditations on our respective YouTube channels. I have more than Abbie does, but Abbie's done meditations as well. You did. You do more affirmations, which is kind of like, it's kind of the same thing. It's still like this meditative state you're going into. But taking some time each day, or at least a few times a week, to become quiet and either meditate for a few minutes or listen to some positive affirmations that are reinforcing concepts and ideas that you want to bring into your life, helping you to manifest creativity, helping you to become grounded and feel at peace.
And you have a course that's specifically for writers, for meditation and positive affirmations. That's, I think, a really good place to start if you're new to it. And you haven't really done a lot of meditation, or you're not sure where to start. Kate's course is specifically designed for writers, so it's really cool. Very kind of dialed in, customized for the writing experience, which is, I think, really special. Something that we as writers need a lot more of, because I think, like we're talking about in this new episode of the podcast this Monday, kind of touching on the question of self-doubt and comparison, and how those things are really, they start to affect you negatively when you're not centered and grounded and really focusing on your own creative journey. So those are things that are definitely they kind of creep up on you, like you're saying. When you're in flow and you're enjoying the writing process, you don't really think about how some obstacles might come up and trip you up. But it's good to have some standard operating procedures, I guess, that you can default to when you start to feel drained creatively, energetically, and then you start to feel maybe some self-doubt or comparison creeping in. And having those things like a go-to lifeline sort of thing, I think is really helpful.
So do you find that you use meditation when you feel burnt out, and you also use meditation kind of for preventative care?
Yeah, for sure. I think
what kind of meditations do you like to do?
I like to do like shorter, like probably 15 minutes is probably like my limit.
Yeah.
Because I have a very short attention span when it comes to meditating. But even for a 15-minute
right. Well,
practice,
that's the thing though, is it doesn't have to be any specific length.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think it has to be like a really long period of time to like get into the meditative flow state, but it can literally be taking 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be someone else's definition of what meditating should be.
Yeah. Anything that can just kind of get you out of your head, out of those repetitive thoughts and negative thoughts, anything that is distracting you, really. And what you connect with, I find what I connect with when I meditate is like that deeper sense of creativity and stillness. Like what is the thing behind everything that we kind of get distracted from when we listen to the negative voices or negative thoughts,
and replacing those negative thoughts. Even if you're experiencing negativity, replace those thoughts with something good. If you're having thoughts of like, I'm just doubting myself, I'm doubting my ability to create, I feel unworthy, whatever the thoughts may be, pull up an I am affirmations video and just let it play in the background while you clean your house or drive to work, whatever, and let those words play in your mind and just feel them wash over you and agree to them. Listen to that. So often we can listen to ourselves. I mean, our body is listening to us. Our brain is listening to us say these negative things like, I'm so dumb, I can't do it, I can't do this. Let's let ourselves hear our own voice affirming positive things like, yes, I am a powerful creator. I am able to conquer this challenge. I am able to write this book. I have everything I need. And it may seem at first like you're just forcing it, but the more you practice speaking positive words and bringing positive affirmations into your daily life, the easier it becomes to incorporate them and the more real it seems to you, because you're literally just rerouting your thoughts. You're building new roads in your mind, and that can take a little while, but it will manifest over time as you put in the work to catch yourself when you fall into the trap of negative thinking and reroute those thoughts to a positive loop.
Yeah.
Welcome to everyone who's hopping on now. Amy said, Abbie is to meditation what Kate is to outlining.
Accurate. Yeah.
Accurate. The Periwinkle Witch said she finally made it to the first live stream. Hello from Tennessee. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad you could make it. And to everyone who's hopping on right now, I'm so glad that you guys were able to make it to the live stream. That's so cool. Yeah, so Abbie has a positive affirmations video on her channel. I have positive affirmations video on this channel here. So if you're new to the channel and you just subscribed, make sure you go check out the playlist that's called Meditations, and you'll find some positive affirmations that are specifically designed for writers. And then if you want to take it a step further, I also have a course that's available too. That's like $24, and it has 7 days of guided meditations and positive affirmations specifically for creative writers. So it can be really helpful to get yourself into that right headspace, and the link for that's below too. But if that's not something that you want to do right now, there's tons of free meditations on my channel that are accessible for everybody. And it's just something that's really helped me in so many ways. And it's helped Abbie as well. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing them is it's really a helpful tool that can help you grow so much in your creative journey.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing for me would be like yoga and movement, getting moving when you feel stuck. And it doesn't have to just be yoga. For me, I love yoga and also martial arts. And sometimes when you feel stuck and you feel uninspired, it can be so helpful to get up, get out of that space and get moving, do something active, get outside and breathe fresh air. And I know this is something you actively practice as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the best ways to kind of get out of your head and just kind of enjoy the moment and feel more connected to life, because that's what really like inspires me to be creative, is to reconnect with real life. And I don't mean like, not thinking about your stories, even just anything that's social media, the news, anything that's digital, it's not like experiencing real life and going and enjoying something in nature, or enjoying your family, or even your dog, just things that are very simple, down to earth, and
plugging into the present moment.
Yes, something that will make you like plug into the present moment, even if it could be something like yoga, like you're saying, or it could be, something simple like going for a drive in the country, or going to a mountain or a lake and just breathing and enjoying the beauty that surrounds you. Things like that really help to nurture me and make me feel like I'm living in the present moment.
It can help like clear your mind from any clutter that's accumulated. It's kind of like when you've been working like crazy in your writing space and you have like all kinds of stuff that's accumulated over days. It's like when you take a few minutes to like tidy everything, and then you sit down in that space and you're like, oh, I feel so refreshed now. I feel so inspired to create. It's kind of like doing that for your brain. Yeah. When you take time to get out into nature, or even go outside and do some deep breathing, spend some time with people you love, your pets, do something that makes you feel really relaxed. It can be that reset button that helps to cleanse away the mental clutter.
Yeah, for sure. It's very helpful.
Yeah, it can be. And then we've also talked about how just doing something you love, that truly inspires you, whether it's reading or even watching a series that inspires you, something that makes you feel like you can't wait to create.
Yeah, and those things can be you don't have to take a whole day off to do them. Usually it could be like something that you just take a few minutes or an hour a day to do something that really you have fun doing it, and it's inspiring and creative and playful, and something that those are the preventative things we're talking about, like as far as nurturing your creativity, so that you don't get burnt out. When I stop making time for things like that, that's when I find that I start to spiral into burnout. It's because it's like, no, I'm too busy. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to, take those little moments of joy and playfulness, really. And that's what ends up leading to this sense of like.
Right. Because those are the things that are fueling you.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like one of the last episodes we did, and I can't even remember which one it was. I think it might have been the procrastination episode, where you said something and it made me think of the analogy of waiting to put fuel in your car for when you get to the destination. Yes. It's like, well, you need to put the fuel in first in order to even get there. Otherwise, you're going to break down along the way. And it's going to take you actually even longer to get to that destination. And it's the same thing with your creativity. When you think about the fact that you need, like Abbie was saying, to find those joyful moments, those bright spots, those things that make you super happy and pumped. And you have to make time for those. It needs to be a balance, wouldn't you say? Like, it has to be balanced. with
and there's discipline to be found in that,
right,
even, you know,
definitely.
like I know sometimes, at least my personality, I feel like sometimes like, oh, if I take time to do something fun, I'm not being disciplined, but actually it's it's a form of discipline to recognize what you need to continue down your creative path
Right.
in your optimal state, and to make time and space in your life to give yourself those things, even if it's not the most immediately gratifying thing. Like even taking time off for someone like me, I could just I speak from experience when I say that taking time off sometimes for me is more stressful than working, because it's like I'm thinking all the time about what I still have to do and what is on my calendar, whatever. And that can sometimes be even more difficult than working and just continuing down the same path of what you've been doing. So I would argue that it takes a different kind of discipline to really objectively observe what you need and to give yourself those things that you need to make time for those things, you know.
Right, because a lot of times we're spending time on a lot of things that aren't even fueling us forward in our journeys. Like, even if we feel we don't have a lot of free time, we probably do have some free time that we might even be wasting, like scrolling through a feed on a phone or doing something that's not really nourishing us, because we get like so burnt out, then we just spend the weekend like watching TV all day in our PJs or something. And it's like, well, if we didn't let ourselves get to that point of burnout, we could actually use that same amount of time to do something that would actually inspire us and get us really pumped to create in the coming week,
right,
or in the coming month.
Yeah.
So true. Someone had said, the Periwinkle Witch had said, "Thank you for these reminders. I'm trying to balance art, building, social media, and writing my first novel, and it's hard sometimes to stay positive." Yeah, that's totally what we're talking about here, is finding that balance, because I think, and we struggle with that. We've struggled with that in the past too. Like, there's always that element of you have other things you have to do as an author, to promote your books and all the technical things to get published, and it can be draining sometimes.
I think
So
it's
you have
also
to find a balance.
it's also good to remind yourself that it's a season and it won't be like that forever, you know.
Right.
That's, I know we've both gone through that with like building. I know I've experienced it with building my author platform, building my YouTube channel, and before I was doing YouTube, I was blogging. And what I was doing when I was first building my blog platform was so much more work than what I do now. I mean, what I do now is a different kind of work, but it's more satisfying and enjoyable, because of the seasons I've been through, where I had to push myself really hard with, you know, building a following, building social media, building a blog network, networking with other people. And you will go through a season of that where it's like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work, and it's hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is another season coming after this, and it's going to be way easier once you have that momentum going. So it takes discipline to push through the harder seasons, for sure, but reminding yourself that this is a season, and things will change, things will grow and evolve as your business grows, as your author brand grows. I think it helps to give you hope. It helps to inspire you.
And also delegating time to still do things you love. So if it's like, oh, I have to spend some time writing emails or doing social media posts, like schedule, okay, I'm going to do an hour of this every other day or whatever, and have that be a specific time, set a timer, put on a track of, hour-long study music, do that thing, and then when it's done, let that be a cutoff time. And so that way it's not becoming this overwhelming task that seems never ending. Let there be a specific time to do that thing, so that way it's scheduled in there, and it's not like this never ending task. I think that's part of what can create a huge intimidation factor as well.
For sure. Yeah. And prioritizing things is going to help a lot. I know that when I was the most stressed out in my work life was when I didn't prioritize anything and I just had a monster to-do list and would try to go through it every day, and every day would just get bigger. So that's something that I learned from, and now I prioritize things that are the most important to me. I use calendar blocking, and I try to make time for those things that still feed my soul that I love.
Yeah, it's so important. This kind of ties into it. Precious had asked a question of that they wanted to go into writing a smaller project, and they have another book they're working on, and they feel like overwhelmed because they're trying to write both while they're in college. How should they go about that? Yeah, it can be tough to juggle more than one writing project. I'm actually working on for the first time on more than one writing project at once, because Abbie and I are co-writing a series, and I also have another book I'm working on. Abbie has always worked on multiple projects, though. Yeah. So what advice would you give to that? I feel like you're more qualified to give advice.
I don't know.
On this
I don't know if I call myself
thing.
Qualified. It's just like, it's a different way of creating. And I think it's sometimes some creatives like it and some don't. So it's kind of a preference thing. And what I find is that it's nice to have multiple projects to work on, because sometimes I'm not as passionate or excited about one, but I am excited about something else. And so I don't have to put off the other project, like, no, I have to finish this one first before I can do that. Cause then it kind of makes you low key resent the one you're still working on, and then kind of idolize that other forbidden book. Like, it's going to be so much better to write that one. But if you give yourself the satisfaction now of being able to work on both, okay, sometimes one can help the other and help you to have better perspective. So my advice would be to just not pressure yourself with either one, and not put any pressure on yourself of like, this has to be done by this time, or, don't give yourself any deadlines or commit to like publishing anything yet. Just enjoy the process of being able to work on both of these stories, and just have fun with the creative process on both of them is what I'd say. Like, just taking the pressure off, taking the limiters off, enjoying the process. And if you don't feel like writing one story on a certain day or a certain week or a certain month, then it's okay. You can leave it for a while, and it's still going to be there for you when you come back. So many times I've returned to writing projects after months, even years of leaving them, and I come back with better ideas. So there's really no rush, I think, is the bottom line.
Yeah, taking the pressure off, because especially if you find that you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe pull back and just take stock and ask yourself, why am I feeling overwhelmed? Is it because I'm putting way too much pressure on myself to finish one of these stories? And do I really need to do that at this season of my life? Or am I just putting undue pressure on myself for no reason? Could I enjoy the journey more if I was way laid back about this? And if the answer is yeah, you could enjoy it more, then why not just do that?
Yeah.
Why not just do that? Sophia asked, how do I keep up my energy while starting a successful career? Taking time to do all the things we're mentioning here, and also making your own list, figuring out what are some things that nourish and fuel your soul. What are some things? Maybe it's taking time to meal prep. Maybe it's taking time to spend time with your family, or go for a hike in nature, or watch some films that inspire you, read some books. Make a list of things that are truly fueling your soul. And I think we don't want to confuse that with just things that make you feel comfortable, because that's different than the things that are fueling you forward. Like, I can think of some things that maybe make me feel comfortable, like just lazing around and, eating sugar. And that's not good for me, but it might feel good, but it's not like helping me in my journey. But things like yoga, meditation, spending time with people I love, having inspiring conversations, going for hikes in the wilderness, stuff like that gets me super stoked. And for each and every person, that's different. And Abbie and I have a lot of crossover of things we love doing together, but we also have things that we respectively do that are like different for each of us.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's going to be unique per person. So it's important to ask yourself, what are those things for you?
Yeah, that's very true. Very important.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a little bit more time to grab a few more questions from you guys. But while we're in the midst of this conversation, I wanted to just remind all of you, because so many of you hopped on since we started a little while ago, that we are starting a brand new live series on our Patreon. So if you've ever been thinking of joining our Patreon at any level, this is going to be something that's available to all levels of our Patreons. You can join our Patreon page and you will be included in our monthly live streams. So if you think this format is cool of us chatting back and forth, chatting with you guys, answering questions about writing, creativity, inspiration, mindfulness, we're going to be chatting about those things every single month. So that's going to be really fun. It's something that we've wanted to do in this new year. It was something that we discussed a lot as we headed into January. Like, what are some new things we want to bring to the table in this new season? So many of you guys are starting new books and you're starting new projects and wondering, how am I going to fuel myself forward in my journey? How am I going to sustain that energy to bring that to my book, to bring that to my craft and have a successful author career? And I mean, that's what me and Abbie are passionate about. Abbie's channel is loaded with amazing advice for authors on how to do exactly that. And my channel is loaded with meditations and mindfulness videos and our podcast, which many of you probably know about. So if you want to join our Patreon page, all that said, you can find the link below in the description, and that will get you at any level into the monthly live streams.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun, super exciting.
It is, definitely. Oh, Rocket came to say hello.
Rocket's here to say hi.
Yeah, I know a lot of you guys are probably fans of Rocket. He's been on Abbie, some of Abbie's live streams.
Oh, thank you to Hannah for the super chat.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
You're the best. So glad you're here.
Here's a question from Carrie. How do you decide which version of a story you really want to tell when self-doubt causes you to keep changing the story? I've added so many things, trying to make it awesome, and I have lost the plot. Well, we have an episode coming up about self-doubt.
Yes, we do. And I think another thing for story self-doubt, when you're trying to decide what version of something is better, is being able to talk about it with somebody who understands your story and your vision and your long-term mission with your writing. That's something that has always helped me a lot. Kate is my go-to person for that, and we're kind of each other's critique partners in that regard of bouncing ideas off each other and kind of saying, a lot of times I'll come to Kate with an idea and I'll be like, I'm not sure about this. What do you think of this? And what if this happened? And Kate will give me feedback. Yeah. And it's very helpful just to be able to talk to someone else. Sometimes also, if you don't have anyone, it's nice to talk to yourself. It sounds kind of crazy. So maybe do this when nobody can hear you because they might think you're crazy. But I find that talking to myself out loud, going through different plot ideas, really helps to sort out what makes sense and what doesn't, and what possibly might have a plot hole.
It's kind of like reading aloud too. I find reading your own work aloud helps you to view it so much more objectively than reading it silently. Do you find that too?
Yeah.
Because I don't do the talking out loud, but I do the reading out loud. Yeah. And sometimes I'll find things I'm like, oh, wow, I miss that every other time.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's very helpful. So that can be helpful for sorting out plot ideas and trying to get more confidence in some of them.
I think Milo Mazzilli, I hope I'm saying your handle correctly, says, love you both. We love you too. I am writing a romantic scene. I just feel like it's never good enough. I edit and rewrite it again and again. Would you have any advice for me? It can be tough sometimes writing a certain scene that you've built up in your mind and you've thought about this scene for a long time, and now you finally get there and it's almost like this nervous energy to make the scene live up to what you want it to be, regardless of what it is. And I think going back to just stop overthinking it and write exactly what like your gut instinct is in that moment based on the character's internal conflict.
Yeah.
Like just let their conflict lead the actions and what's being said without overthinking each element too much.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're intimidating yourself, kind of.
Yeah.
A lot of times we can intimidate ourselves with the expectations of how we want something to be, and it ends up actually being really good. It's just like your expectations of it are kind of like distracting you from how good it actually is. So that can be helpful. Another thing is that maybe just some element of it is not working and you should try writing it in a completely different way. Like what if it was from another character's perspective? Or what if you flipped the events upside down so that the first thing happens last and the last thing happens first? Try to look at it from like a different perspective and freshen it up a bit and see what happens. Experiment and play with it. Do something that is unexpected that you haven't tried yet.
Yeah. It can kind of be cool to like flip it on its head and look at it from a different perspective. Like, what if I did something totally different that I haven't been anticipating or that I hadn't thought of until now, and try it from like a different angle.
Right.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Milo Mazzilli. So appreciate it. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Ken asks, what's the biggest challenge when collaborating with another writer? Recommendations on developing a plot or character together? This is a great question because Abbie and I are in the process of doing all of this as we write our series together, as we co-author. And I would say that the biggest challenge is making sure that you're communicating enough. Wouldn't you say probably?
Yes, that's definitely.
And I feel like we've pretty much mastered that with us because we're like so close already and we talk all the time. So we've written together since we were really young kids. And so it's very natural for us to talk about the story all the time. Like we'll be like grabbing lunch together and we'll just randomly start talking about the story. Like, oh, hey, you know what, so-and-so should do. And it's like, we don't even say, I
have to start talking about it. We don't even have to like,
we don't have to reference the story. It's like, we know
in the book. It's like, what if they did this instead of that?
Like, and you know exactly what we're talking about. But yeah, making sure you keep an open line of communication, because probably the worst thing that can happen is that you start writing something that the other author didn't foresee happening, or vice versa. So you always want to be on the same page, literally, with your co-author by communicating a lot and figuring out, how do they communicate? Do they need a lot of words, or do they need just like a few tidbits of an idea? Do they need to talk to you on the phone or in person or on a video call, or do they prefer writing out their ideas in a note file? And how do you best process that information and be really open with each other about, hey, I have these ideas. What would be the best way for you to process them? Do you want me to write out notes, or do you want to just have some FaceTime of talking it out and hash all of this out together and springboard some ideas? And so figuring out how each other communicates is important, and keeping that line of communication opened at all times is a really important thing as well. I think when it comes to co-authoring, like, what would you say? Would you say that that's the biggest challenge for you as well?
That's a big thing for sure. I think that helps a lot with every stage of the process.
Thank you so much to everyone for the kind words. Appreciate it. We're so glad that these videos can help you guys, these live streams and the content that we make. It really means a ton to us. Let's see if we can take one more question before we wrap up. We're so glad that you guys were able to join us for this live stream. Yeah, and like, so many of you guys are starting novels. It's amazing. And we're so stoked.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's a great time. Like, the new year can be such an inspiring time to start a story.
Yeah, for sure. It's a new opportunity to explore.
It is. Kay asks, if I finish my books, can I thank you both in the acknowledgments? We would be honored.
Yes,
We're
for
so
sure.
happy that we can aid you in your writing journey and offer you some things that inspire you. It's absolutely amazing. Just reading through all the trying to read through all the text here. Brittany is asking about balancing two different types of art, like writing and art, and getting super into one, the other suffers. So how do you go about balancing two creative passions? That's a great question, because Abbie and I are both definitely passionate about other things too, other than writing, and like other arts and hobbies, activities. And I think finding time to delegate to both of them, finding that balance, you know what I mean? I think if you feel super inspired to write, then you should. But if you find like, oh, well, this other thing, this other art form that I'm practicing is suffering because I'm not spending enough time with it, then maybe look at your schedule and see like, okay, what are the things that really matter to me, and how can I make some time, carve out some time for both of those things, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good thing to do, because it's good to have variety in your creative life too. And I think that one creative thing can help the other, especially if they're very different, and especially if you're not taking one super seriously, because it kind of gets you into the creative headspace without any self judgment or self doubt. And so that's something that I think is that's beneficial for sure. It's important to take the time to be creative without pressure or expectations on a specific thing. Yeah. So
Finding that balance.
Yeah, it does. It helps for sure.
Well, just to recap, take care of yourselves, find things that keep you inspired, get moving, go outside, breathe fresh air, meditate, or do some positive affirmations. And above all, find some mindfulness practices that work for you. Maybe it's just having some quiet time first thing in the morning and reading a book that inspires you, or maybe it's spending time with someone you love, or with your dog, with little Rocket down here. It always inspires us. So it can really be anything, but finding what works for you is so key. And no one can tell you what will work for you. That's a unique journey that you have to go on yourself.
Yeah.
So we hope that these tips helped you guys. We thank you so much for joining us here today. We hope you enjoyed a cup of tea or coffee and took some notes. And if you want to hear some more thoughts by Abbie and I, catch our next episode of the podcast, which will be coming out on Monday. It's going to be a good episode.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. You guys are going to get a lot out of it. It's a highly requested episode. And if you want to do more live streams with us, we'll be doing them occasionally here when we can. But we are going to be doing them every single month over on our Patreon. And it's our joint Patreon for the podcast called patreon.com/The Kate and Abbie Show. And you'll find the exact link to that below. You can join at any level, does not matter. You'll be included in our monthly live streams. And we look forward to being able to inspire you guys and bring new topics about creative writing and inspiration, living an inspired, pumped life as a creative to the table each and every month for you guys, and doing live Q&A like this, just hanging out with you guys. We love and appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you guys soon. Until next time, stay stoked
and rock on.
Namaste, guys.